Hey there guys, and welcome back to Tech Easily. So it's the start of a new series here on my channel, and I'm going to be teaching you guys about CSS. Now in this first intro video, I will just be going through the basics of CSS. So I have a presentation made for you guys and I'll be walking you through that. I'll teach you how to link your CSS file into your HTML web pages and go through all the basic methods that you can use to do that. I will also go through a basic CSS file and go through all the syntax in that file as well and explain it to you guys. So if you're interested in learning about that, then please keep on watching. Okay guys, so before I go through the basics of CSS, I do want you to note that I do have a HTML series on my channel where I go through all the basics for beginners, and I highly recommend you guys to go through those first because some of the CSS videos that I have coming up are a continuation of those. So I'll leave a link to them in the description box down below. And one other thing is that just like my HTML series, I will be using Notepad in these ones as well. So now let's get to CSS. What does it actually stand for? So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. In simplicity, it's just a style sheet language. And one of the best things about CSS is you can literally style and change the look of multiple web pages at the same time, and you don't even have to touch the code in your HTML pages when you're doing that. So that's a really good thing, especially when your project scaled up and you have hundreds of HTML web pages and you can't afford to make a style sheet for each one of them. So you can basically have one with the theme of your whole website and you can link that, and it's really easy and simple to do. Okay guys, so there's three methods that you can use to link or reference your CSS into your HTML web pages. And I'll be going through each one of them in detail in a bit, but for now their names include External CSS, Internal CSS, and Inline CSS. So External CSS. Now this is probably the most commonly used method, and it's when you create a separate file with the .css extension. I'll show you that in a bit, but for now just know that it's a separate file with this .css extension and you link that into the code in your HTML web page. I'll also walk you through the syntax of a basic CSS web page as well, CSS page as well in a bit, but let's go through the rest of this. So the way we actually reference the CSS into our HTML page, now this is a screenshot I took of my code, and basically you're probably familiar to all of this because I've gone through this, but inside my head is where I link my CSS, and I do that by using the link tag. Now the rel attribute where we have style sheet is basically saying that the reference document is a style sheet, so that's straightforward. And then just like before, href, this is used to locate the file. So we have the name of the file I'm going to show you in a bit. It's called style, and then the extension is .css. Okay guys, so very quickly I want to show you guys what a basic CSS file looks like. So just like I told you, the name of my file is style, and then if you hover over this you can see that the type is Cascading Style Sheet, and this is because the extension of our file was .css when we saved it. But don't worry about that for now. I'll go through all of that in my next videos. Let's just focus on the basic syntax of this file. Okay guys, so if you have h1 tags in your HTML web page and you want to change the background color of all those tags to be black, then all you have to do is put it in your selector here. This is known as a selector, and it will do the job for every h1 tag that you have. Now, if you wanted to change the background color of the body, you would basically just replace the h1 selector by body, and this will change the whole background color of your body to be black. And if you wanted to do that with paragraph, you would just put in P, and it will do exactly the same thing. But let's just go back to our h1. Next thing we do is open up our squiggly bracket and put in our property, which is the background color in this case. But this could be the font size, so if you want to change the font size, make it bigger, make it smaller, you could easily replace your property here to be font size. If you wanted to change the color of your text, you would literally just put in color here, and it would change the color of your text here. So you can change your property up according to what you want for your HTML page. Next up, we have our colon, and then the value will go inside. So my value here is my black for the color. If this was font size, if my property was font size here, my value would be, for example, 10 pixels or however big or small I want my font to be. Then we close this declaration. This is our declaration. Then we close this with a semicolon and then a squiggly bracket to end it off. So that is the basic syntax of your CSS file. Tells us it's a CSS page. Okay guys, so this is how you externally reference your CSS. Let's go on to the second method, which is used but not as commonly as the first one. So this one is known as internal CSS referencing. And this is when you actually place your CSS inside of your HTML page. Now, one really important thing to note, you guys, is that you can completely change the look of your page. We know that, but it's only of this specific page. So it's not like the first one where I could reference that CSS file into multiple pages and it would do the job. This one only stays inside this HTML page. So please be careful of that. So I've again taken a screenshot of my code just to show you guys. I have a simple HTML page here. So if I wanted to add CSS into this page, what I would do is inside my head, again, it always goes inside the head because we are just styling some of the elements in our web page. It's not actually content. So inside here, I'm using a style element tag, and this is a HTML tag that I'm using. But this tag allows me to put CSS inside of this page. And again, if I wanted to change the H1, which would probably be in my body, and change the background color to be black, I do the same thing. If you notice, the code here is the same as it was in my CSS file I showed you a minute ago, but the only difference is that you directly put this into your HTML page instead of a separate file and linking them together. And you might be tempted that this is probably quicker, but in the long term, and if you think about expanding your websites or like creating more pages, that one is probably the way to go. Okay guys, so lastly, we can use inline CSS style referencing to add CSS into our HTML pages. And inline means basically that we want to change the style of one specific element in our HTML. And we can do this from within the HTML element itself. So again, I have a screenshot, and this time we can, from within our HTML element, we can actually use the attribute of style, and it allows us to do the same thing that we did in our CSS file. So specify the property and the value. So I want my H1 tag, I want the background color to be black. So the only difference is this time it's only applying this style to this specific H1 tag. Now, if you were externally referencing this and from a style sheet and you had H1 there like I showed you before, that would change the style of every H1 that you have. But inline means it's only going to change the style of this specific H1 tag. Again, I could change the property here, so font size, and then change this to 10 pixels, etc. But you get the point. But the good thing is that any property can be put in here, and it's easily achievable by just using the style attribute here. And this is basically how inline CSS referencing works. Okay, so that's it for today's video, you guys. I hope you guys learned something about CSS, and I will be going through a lot more and making more tutorials on CSS, so please stay tuned for those. Until we code again, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave any questions, recommendations, or suggestions that you guys may have, and I will get to them as quick as I can, and I will see you in my next video.